Alright, time for a little review here of the old SV650. So I bought this bike brand new in Japan from Osaka. It's got about 3,200 kilometers on the clock now. It's had 2 services, so the initial 1,000k service and then another one after that. And yeah, so far so good. Obviously a few modifications I've done so far, nothing major, just some tank grips on the tank there. This one's a bit average, but I don't know if everyone has these problem with tank grips, but especially in the heat they tend to come a bit loose. I did have another one on there and it just pretty much fell off. It was complete rubbish. So that's another one that I put on. These side ones have been pretty good so far actually. Again, you buy stuff off Amazon, you don't know whether or not it's going to be any good or if it's going to be shit. So far so good on the tank grips. I have changed the mirrors. So the stock mirrors on these are fine. Actually, they're probably, it's going to sound stupid changing mirrors to ones that don't work as well, but they're probably almost better visibility wise than these ones. I changed to these just because I didn't like the way the other ones looked. They were pretty ordinary. I did think about getting bar-end mirrors, but I personally don't like bar-end mirrors. I also feel like they stretch the handlebar size out a bit, which would annoy me if I was lane filtering. But that said, these ones tend to come over a bit as well. I guess at least you can pull those in with bar-ends, you can't really pull them in. Yeah, so it's pretty stock. I've got a Delcovic exhaust on there, which sounds awesome. Those are really good exhausts, cheap slip on. I think it's titanium, so it'll last quite a while. Sounds really good. You don't have to do much to get the old one off. It's basically just some bolts you need to pull off. I know on the older SV650s I think you had to cut some pipe to get it on there, but this is just simple pull on, pull off, pull on, put on, pull off, pull on job. What else have I done? I've changed the, well, I've put some sliders on here on the chassis, which some people say you shouldn't do because the chassis is not designed for that sort of flex, but this is more for tip overs than anything else. I don't expect to be sliding down the road sideways on my bike, and if I am, I'm not thinking the slider is going to be helping me that much. Also installed some little sliders down here just for getting the bike stand on a bit easier. And I did a, just on this side I've chucked on a helmet holder, just a cheap, I think that was off AliExpress actually. It was a bit of a pain. The holes didn't line up properly, so I had to get a file and basically file the hole down to make it fit properly. Eventually got there, and then you have to take these bolts off and put that on. I think the only thing this thing's doing is holding the foot pegs on, so it's not really a big deal. It's not that hard to get off either. If you don't have a pretty big bar, like a breaker bar or even a big torque wrench, it's a bit of a pain to get these off sometimes. I think when they put them on in the factory, I don't know what they do, but they seem to just over tighten the crap out of everything in the factory. And I guess the only other thing would be this radiator guard here, which is pretty good. Just keeps all this shit off the radiator. I think that was another Amazon job, and that you simply just pull this covers off here and then chuck it on there and off you go. Not really any issues with that either. She's a bit warm, so I won't touch too much of that. Any issues so far? I haven't really noticed any issues thus far. It's been really good. I think it comes with a 1-year unlimited kilometer warranty as well, which is really good. I didn't particularly want a bike with tons of features anyway. I just like pretty stock standard bulletproof setup, and this is pretty much that. There's not much that can go wrong with this. It's obviously a V-twin. I think it's 4 sparks? 2 sparks per cylinder, pretty sure. Well, obviously you can see one down there. There must be another one on the other side, I'm guessing. In there somewhere. anyway, I'm pretty sure it's dual spark in each one. It's got plenty of grunt basically in any gear. You're never going to run out of poke. It doesn't have that many bells and whistles. It's still got a standard halogen light, which some people won't like, but I don't mind. I try and avoid driving too much at night anyway if I can, because it's a bit shit for visibility. It's got a standard LCD display. I don't even know if you call that LCD. It's like an old digital display, maybe. It's probably the definition for that. And yeah, I might turn her on, see how she sounds. It's kind of a bit hard, obviously the mic's not directly in front of there, but we'll see how we go. Sounds pretty beefy. I do love that exhaust. Yeah, Delcovic, good product. If you're in Japan, that was a bit of a pain to get, I have to say. They sent me the incorrect clamps and a few other things, and then I had to contact their sales and support, and that was a bit of an issue. I think they just don't have that much staff in Japan, so, and all the stuff that's happened with COVID and shipping issues has been a bit of an issue for them as well. So eventually they sorted me out with all the right gear, but it was a bit of a pain. But yeah, I definitely would recommend those exhausts. Excellent. What things am I going to do next? I'm probably going to change these indicators because they're just, well, complete rubbish. I think it'd be the best term. You can probably even see here they fill up with moisture. They're really big and fat and bulky. They don't do a bad job. I mean, they're alright at indicating. I wouldn't say they're terrible by any means, but they could be a whole lot better. They just look real bad, and the fact that they fill up with moisture kind of surprises me that you can even get away with that, because you would think it'd be a bit of a safety issue. So I'll probably change those. I may change the handlebars. The pull on the gear lever is quite stiff. I don't know why. The brake lever is probably actually at a pretty good distance. There's not many issues with that, but this gear lever feels quite far away for starters. There's tons of play here. I don't know if you can see that. A lot of play, and it's just quite stiff. I mean, this bike's got nearly 3,000 or over 3,000 Ks on the clock now, and it's still really stiff. So I don't know why they've made it like that. The seat, that's another thing that I don't particularly like. I like the shape of the seat, don't get me wrong, it looks good, but it's pretty ordinary to sit on. If you're going over like on maybe a 2-hour or 3-hour ride or anything longer than that, that seat is going to get really uncomfortable. And it's not that, you can get the tuck roll seat that comes on the SV650X, which looks better, but I'm not sure it's that much more comfortable. And then your only other option after that's probably going to be to change the seat cover, put something a bit more comfortable on there, or get like a bagster seat or something, which is going to set you back quite a lot of coins. So don't know what you would do about that. You can either fork out lots of money for a more comfortable seat or just live with it, I guess. Or you can just do what dirt bike users do and just chuck some sheepskin on there. That'll be fine. I wouldn't look tacky at all. Right. Brakes. So you've got dual discs on the front with Tokiko calipers. Front brakes are excellent, no issues there. The rear brake, you've just got a single caliper on one disc, and again, not really any issues with the rear brake either. I heard that when they released this back in 2016, the new edition of the SV650, it had some issues with the front brakes because I think it was only a single disc and it was pretty horrible. But these dual caliper discs are good. Yeah, not much else to really go over there. I'll take it for a drive. It's a nice day here in Tokushima on Mount Bizan. Beautiful blue sunny day. So yeah, let's go for a ride. So this road is a bit rustic. It's actually better than the road I came in on, which was just covered in leaves, which is a bit sketchy if you're on a motorcycle with road tyres, but I'm sure will suffice. One thing I do really like about the SV650 is that it's quite a dynamic machine. You can use it for anything you want, really. I mean, I've heard of people turning these into bobbers, heard of people turning them into touring bikes. You probably, I mean, if you really wanted to go out there, you could just turn it into a dirt bike to a degree. It'd be pretty freaking heavy, but still. I've driven on highways, I've driven on town roads, driven on roads like this, driven on like very narrow mountain roads with quite a lot of debris on the road, and it's actually really good. If you are standing up on the pegs, it gets a bit annoying because obviously the handlebar's quite low, but if you were doing that a lot, you could probably just get a raised handlebar kit or something. But yeah, it's just a really versatile bike. There's plenty of torque in pretty much every gear. I mean, obviously you wouldn't want to gun it 100% in 5th gear from 0, but I mean, it's pretty good. When you're on the highway, for instance, if you're stuck on 3rd or 4th, you've still got enough torque to sort of rip it. So yeah, I don't have any complaints about power delivery, power band. I mean, I wouldn't mind a little bit more grunt down low, like if I wanted to start wheeling it, but I mean, I've heard that these aren't really good engines to wheelie anyway. I think you can, if you wheelie them too much, you can starve the oil, so. And I mean, if you want a bike to wheelie, wouldn't you just get a dirt bike or a supermoto or something? So this, I think this bike's just, it does everything you need it to do pretty good. And one of the reasons I like it is because it's a V-twin. It's not that fat. A lot of bikes now, they seem to be quite fat, and I kind of like a thinner motorcycle, especially if you're lane filtering. Having a thinner bike's just so much easier to move and navigate around. So I really like the fact that it's a bit thinner. Having previously, my first bike was a Honda Hornet 250F, so it was 2001. Carbureted 4-cylinder screamer. I really like that bike. So that was my first bike, and this is my second bike, and I have to say that every now and then I miss the Hornet, but this is still a whole bunch of fun. Well, there's a bit of a Humpty Dumpty bump there. I think the tyres are a little bit smaller than usual, but it doesn't really make any difference, I don't think. I mean, if anything, it might be actually easier to corner with these tyres. I think they're Dunlop Sports. I probably need to check that, actually. I will check that later. But yeah, I mean, the tyres are excellent. I haven't had any issues with the tyres. Wet weather, dry weather, just whatever you want to throw at them, they're just really good tyres. No probs there. This guy is going mega slow, by the way. Oh, there's an elephant. Right, never seen that place before. Looks a bit run down. I don't know if I'd stay there. What else? So, seating position, it's okay. Like I said, the seat's pretty uncomfortable. I think they've done that on purpose because they said they don't want people to like sit in a comfortable position. They want people in more of a brace position, which I don't really understand. But anyway, the bars are fine. Like, I don't have any issues with where the bars are. It's mainly just the seat that's the uncomfortable part. Sound, I mean, even with the stock exhaust, these things still sound good. It sounds much better than a lot of other bikes with stock exhaust. It's just the stock exhaust looks pretty terrible. It's just this big fat can thing with a black bar on it. It's just really ugly. I don't know why. I think obviously Suzuki just presumes you're going to change the exhaust out anyway, so I'm guessing that's why they put that exhaust on there, and that's why they make it so easy to take off. As far as driving goes day to day, like if you're using this as a commuter bike or even on a highway, as long as it's not horrendously windy, it's pretty good, to be honest. It's fine on the highway, probably even better on tight, small roads or windies. Twisty roads are really good, really fun on this bike. I'm just gonna go easily past you. I don't want to run into anyone. So yeah, I do quite like this as a package. Lots of people complain that it doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. I mean, it's only got ABS, which you can't turn off as we've discussed. It doesn't have a nice color LCD display, but that one works fine. Like, the last thing I want to be doing when I'm riding is adjusting crap on my display and my speedo, and it's just irritating. I just like the fact that this is simple. There's not much that you really need. Obviously it doesn't have a quick shifter, doesn't have, I don't know what other features you'd really want apart from a quick shifter. The suspension, I mean, some people complain because it's non-adjustable suspension, but the way it's set up is pretty good. I don't find that it's really that, it's not too stiff and not too soft, and it handles most of the bumps pretty good. If you were going to be riding on bumpier roads, then you might want to get something with adjustable suspension maybe, or a better suspension, but not really an issue. As far as things like lane splitting and filtering go, it's pretty good. It's not, like I said, it's not a big fat bike, so it's pretty easy to maneuver. It's pretty easy to get down lanes. It's also not super heavy, which is another good thing. So I don't really feel like I'm muscling the bike too much, even at slow speeds. Yeah, I can't complain about really anything to do with the handling. I wouldn't mind the rear brake being a bit stiffer too, but that's just me. I think that's just a personal preference. I actually quite like not having ABS in some ways. I kind of like feeling the rear tyre slip out. Unless you're in the rain, then you really want ABS, so I guess that's personal preference. Yeah, look, for what it is, for the price it is, well, at least in Japan anyway. I mean, I found that when I was looking for a bike, it was I could buy a second-hand SV650 for like $6,000, which is alright, or I could buy a brand new one for $7,000. So I'm like, well, why would I bother buying a second-hand one that's going to be a year or two old that someone's already ridden for 6,000 Ks? You know, this comes with a warranty. It's brand spanking new when I got it. It's the first new bike slash car I've ever, well, first new any vehicle I've ever had. Every other one's been second-hand. And it's just, it just does everything you want. It doesn't do anything that you don't want it to do, and doesn't have too much nonsense on it. It's not packed full of crap to weigh it down. I think if you were in Japan too, this bike's really good because you're always in, not always, but if you live in a town or even a city, you're just always at these roads where you've got traffic lights and intersections, so constant stop-start traffic. You want something that you can lane split in or filter in. You don't want something too big, obviously, because it's going to be a pain to try and navigate around. And I think the engine power band on this is really good too for that sort of stuff, because if you need to have that power, it's always there, like I mentioned. But if you just want to cruise around and not hammer it too hard, it's still fine as well. I don't find that it's quite a gentle power band when you want it to be, and it can be quite harsh when you want to be harsh. So if you're a beginner or even an intermediate rider, it's fine. I do find myself sometimes wanting just a bit more rip your face off torque, but I think that's just because I'm developing as a rider and I kind of want that a little bit. So I know people say the MT-07 is more that sort of a bike, if that's what you're after. The other nice thing about this is I feel like when I was looking to buy a bike, I was actually looking at a Husqvarna Svartpillen or a Vitpillen, and that was going to be more expensive in Japan because it's an imported bike, and obviously it's only a single, and it's only a I think it's 390 or something like that. It's the same engine that's in the Duke 90 essentially, with a different frame. And you know, I like that bike, but I'm sort of happy I got this because I feel like this was better value than that would have been. And the other thing was getting parts. I mean, getting parts for a Husqvarna in Japan was going to be a bit of a nightmare. And KTM in general, I've heard getting parts for sometimes can be a bit of a pain. Whereas Suzuki, it's just like, I mean, the exhaust for this was not expensive at all, really, and it's really good quality. Like, those Delcovics are awesome. And other parts are pretty easy to get. You get your crappy Amazon special or your eBay special, and most of the time that'll suffice. There were a few things that I forgot. One of those is the foot pegs. Not sure how to say this, but the foot pegs are fine for everything except wet weather. They actually look like dirt bike pegs, to be honest. So I've noticed, especially in the rain, if you're riding this bike and you're at a stop, sometimes your foot can slip off the pegs, or even when you're riding it can slip off the pegs. So, which, I don't know whether or not putting some glue, or I know dirt bike riders put silicone on their pegs for better grip. I mean, that might work, or maybe even change. I did have a brief look online, and there aren't that many options for aftermarket foot pegs for these. Maybe I just need to look a bit harder, but that is something that I would probably need to change coming into winter too, because I just don't want to be slipping off the pegs. It's kind of odd actually, because like I said, they're a bit like dirt bike pegs, so you would think they'd be quite grippy and dig into your shoes, because they're almost like jagged bits of metal. But yeah, for some reason I find they don't grip very well in the wet at all. So that's definitely another negative.